Stellen es in die Schuhen, losen es in die Vergangenheit. Ober Chemo vergessen.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's program commemorating Holocaust Remembrance Day. You, all of you watching, are our honored guests because without your interest and involvement, the terrible story of what happened to the Jews and others during the Holocaust will perish, as did the victims themselves. Dina and I would like to thank the organizations that partnered with us in this program, including the Israel American Council, led in New York by Sharon Envy, RAJE, Russian American Jewish Experience, led by our good friend and early Soviet refusenik, Rabbi Ari Katzin, Baruch College Hillel, led by its indefatigable leader, Ilya Brotman, who emigrated from the Soviet Union and then served for 8 years in the US military in Iraq, and our very good friend and Ashes Chayil, Eli Shevalak. We would also like to thank Dasha and Ayelet, our wonderful tech team, without whom we could never have done this. And finally, of course, most of all, I would like to thank my wonderful wife, Dina, who conceived of and created today's program. Let me tell you, since we know all of you well, it was a Herculean task. Our program today, unlike some other programs commemorating Holocaust Remembrance Day, focuses not on the events of the Holocaust per se, but on the symbols that are used to recreate our memory of the event. Symbols in general can be very old, such as the cave paintings in France. They can also be fairly recent, such as the creation of the Israeli flag on the birth of the nation in 1948. And finally, symbols can be contemporary, such as never forget. But in all cases, a symbol is designed to raise memory, to create emotion, and to stir passions. Today, we will focus on the symbols of the Holocaust as they appear in memory, art, music, and live testimonials. We have asked a variety of speakers to share their experiences, demonstrating the importance of keeping the Holocaust alive today among all generations. We have no celebrities on the program, but we do have a group of Jewish heroes whose lives were affected by the Holocaust in one way or another. Let us begin our program with a short video about the creation by the United Nations of International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
5. World War II is nearing its end, and tanks from the Soviet Red Army are rolling, this time toward a site commanders had only recently learned about, Auschwitz. This is what the Soviet soldiers saw. 7,000 prisoners, many on the edge of death. Half of them survived Auschwitz only to die from weakness and cold in the days after liberation. Of course, the prisoners the Soviets saw in Auschwitz were the remnant. Approximately 1.1 million people had been killed in the camp, mostly Jews, but also Roma, Poles, and prisoners of war. Tens of thousands of others had been taken west from Auschwitz just weeks before liberation, on death marches, during which many died. The Soviets found not just survivors. They found dead bodies, clothing, shoes, brushes, hair. And the January 27th date, it became immortalized in 2005 by the United Nations as International Holocaust Remembrance Day, with ceremonies at Auschwitz to mark the liberation, sometimes marked by controversy, particularly between Poles and Jews, who have clashed over how much Auschwitz memorials should emphasize the Jewish.
Thank you. We want to turn now to a trove of testimonials that some of you may not be familiar with, called the Oneg Shabbos Archives. Retrieved after World War II from metal boxes and milk cans buried underneath the Warsaw Ghetto, the Oneg Shabbos Ringelbaum Archive was clandestinely compiled between 1940 and 1942 under the leadership of the historian Emanuel Ringelbaum. Most members of the secret Oneg Shabbos organization gathered thousands of testimonies, thousands, on a real-time basis from natives of Warsaw and refugees from hundreds of other localities, creating a documentary record of the wartime fate of Polish Jewry. The archive comprises some 35,000 pages, including documents, materials from the underground press, photographs, theater bills, memoirs, beautiful letters, and much more. We thought that most of you might not be familiar with this, so we want now to show you a short trailer of a film about the diaries describing the project. Again, this is not the film per se, but a trailer promoting the film about the Oneg Shabbos project.
Somewhere, years ago, there was a mother who knew that her son was the cleverest, the most talented, the most beautiful. And now the brightest and most beautiful child in the world lies in a strange street. And his name isn't even known.
We should have seen the worst coming.
The Germans have embarked on a program of mass murder.
The world's turning upside down.
But we did not want to know the truth. We did not want to see it.
Does the world know about our suffering?
Emanuel Ringelblum understood that he had a story to tell, and it was the most important story he would ever have to tell.
Almost all the photography that we have was taken by the German propaganda unit.
Will the Germans write our history, or will we write our history?
Let the witness be our writing.
I laid the first brick for the...
We write and not on what the Germans show.
Our will to live is mightier than the will to destruction.
Writing becomes the only recourse. That was the ultimate act of defiance.
You don't really need guns to fight. You could fight with paper and pen.
This is what made this collection of documents so absolutely unique.
One thing is clear to all of us. Our devotion and constant terror have not been in vain.
It was a massive collection of the voices of a murdered people.
Among those taken away was Rabbi
Kelly 16.
Israel Lichtenstein,
Leib Golden,
Abraham Levin.
Halina.
Emanuel Ringelblum.
Remember, my name is Nahum Gazivich.
I am writing this as a witness.
Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Gavriel Horan. I'm a rabbi in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm originally from New York. I run an organization that some of you are familiar with, known as RAJE here in Maryland, Russian American Jewish Experience, where we connect Russian Jews to Judaism and to each other and to Israel. And I'm here today to share with you a little bit about my own story as well as my father's story. My father is here with us today, and he'll be sharing some music with us, with his wife, as well as a video about his Holocaust story. My father was born in 1941 in Eastern Slovakia. His earliest memories of Nazis coming to his home and taking away his aunt and uncle in front of his eyes. His family subsequently went into hiding in the woods, and him and his mother were miraculously saved when Nazis found his bunker, and he will share that story shortly with you in a video presentation. His mother and he were then hidden by a non-Jewish family who took them in and passed them off as relatives until the end of the war. After my most recent trip to Poland and Auschwitz, which actually took place 1 year ago, a few days before today, I decided to put my father's name into the Yad Vashem database in Israel to see if I could find any surviving relatives or any information about our relatives who perished in Auschwitz. And what I discovered was truly astounding. If you could please share the first photo. This is my father's name, Ladislav Berggren. His family changed the name to Horan after the war. And it says here, Ladislav Berggren was born in 1941 in Prešov, which is where my father lived after the war. He wasn't born there, born near there. And if you look at the bottom, it says Ladislav was murdered in the Shoah. Now, that shocked me when I saw it, but that's really the way the story could have ended. Now, I've contacted Yad Vashem and they've changed their records, I believe, since then. But according to what they understood, he was murdered in the Shoah because the family changed their name and after the war passed themselves off as non-Jews until they made it to America many years later. So what's unique about my father's story is not that he survived, but that he didn't know he was Jewish during and after the war, and in fact grew up hating Jews. He used to come home from school and tell his mother when he grows up, he wants to kill all the Jews. When my father found out he was Jewish when he was 8 years old in New York, attending yeshiva, he was so embarrassed and so ashamed to find out that he was a dirty Jew. Now, I didn't grow up in a religious family. You could show the next photo. When I was born, my father said a prayer. My father's not a religious man, but he said a prayer, please God, don't let my son become Jewish. That's how deep the Holocaust affected my father. And his prayers did not come true. You can go through the next photos. Both my sister and I both became religious after many years of journeying. And my father now has 10 ultra-Orthodox grandchildren. Keep going through the photos. What I'd like to share with you is the aftermath of the Holocaust, which for us affected me so deeply that I grew up ashamed of being Jewish as well. And my mission today in fighting the Holocaust and assimilation is to combat the shame that so many Jews have inherited by teaching people to find meaning, relevance, and passion in their Judaism. When we live proudly and openly as Jews, connected to our heritage, then we ensure that the memory of the 6 million is not lost. When we embrace our Jewishness with pride, then and only then have we triumphed over the Nazis. I'll give it over to you to the next.
The next morning, I'm in the woods sitting on my paddy. There are trees without leaves all around me. I'm feeling good, even though I'm shivering from the cold. Papa comes over, bends down, and kisses me. Let's go. I'm going to go look for Grandma and Grandpa. I'll come back with them as soon as I can find them. Papa, don't go, I scream. I want you to tell me a story. I hold onto his leg as tight as I can, but he wiggles free. I cry while I'm sitting on my paddy. Papa walks away and blows me a kiss. Papa's been gone for so long. My belly hurts, and I want him to make me feel better. This nice man's name is Mr. Kustra, says Mama. He's going to carry you to his brother's house. I promise he will make you feel better. Papa's not here, and I can't carry you by myself, but Mr. Kustra can help us. Before I know it, I'm sitting on the man's shoulders, wrapped in a warm blanket. We walk through the woods for a long way. It's freezing and raining. Mama walks behind us. and sometimes she catches up and kisses my hand. I keep thinking about Papa, then I fall asleep. I wake up lying on a table in the middle of a room. Mama is holding me. A strange man puts his hands on my stomach. I scream. I don't want him to touch me. He gives me a piece of candy, but I push it away. Mama, I don't like that man. I don't like that man. But Latsko, darling, he's a real doctor, and he's going to help you feel better. I squirm real hard while Mama tries to take my pants off. They come off anyway, even while I keep pushing her hands away. There's mud on the ground. Mama's talking to Mr. Kustra and some other grown-ups. I'm not listening to what they're saying because I'm still angry at the doctor. I can't keep my eyes off the two big kids playing in the mud. I hear Mama say, "Oh no." Mr. Kustra says, "Lily, I'm so sorry." Suddenly, Mama runs to me and points to the boys. "Come, Latsko, let's play with the big kids. They're fun." One of the kids asks my name. "Latsko," I say. I'm starting to shake from the cold. "I'm Yoshko, and he's Stanislav," the boy says, pointing to himself and his friend. "Do you want to play with us?" I nod yes, and we start making mud pies together. My new friends are very nice to me. After talking to the grown-ups for a long time, Mama comes over and starts hugging me too tight. "We are not going back to the woods tonight," she says. "We're going to stay in this beautiful farmhouse with Mr. Kustra and his family." "Is Juditka staying here too?" "No, only you and me." "Can I go to the woods and play with her tomorrow?" Mama starts to cry. "Latsko, we'll talk about it in the morning. Let's go look now at the beautiful room we're going to sleep in tonight." I start to cry too. I miss Juditka. I want to play with her tonight. And I miss Papa so much. Where is he? While my mother and I were at the doctor's that day in November 1944, Nazi soldiers with dogs arrived to patrol the woods around the house. They had heard my cousin Juditka crying and discovered many others hiding in our bunkers. They quickly burned everything down. All the families were rounded up and forcibly taken away to various concentration camps. If we had gotten back to the bunker just a couple of hours earlier, we would have been among them.
Hello. This is Ladislav Bergerund, or shall we say Les Horan. My name is Abigail Lumsden. I'm his wife for the past 17 years. And I can say with pure honesty that within the first 48 hours, I was already introduced to, first of all, the traumatic emotions that he still has and had about being Jewish from his childhood onward. And at the same time, when we went out on our first date to BJ Synagogue and the music played, I could also see his love and deep connection to Judaism, and in particular through his music. And also in particular, Shlomo Carlebach. We'd love to perform for you Mizmor LeDavid, Carlebach, Les Horan style. Thank you.
Great job, Dad.
Mike, please start.
Hi, everybody. About 5 years ago, I was stepping up my Jewish learning. I never went to yeshiva. I never studied Talmud, but I heard that a great rabbi, Rabbi Akiva, started his learning at age 40. Well, I was 50 and I was focused on trying to do just one mitzvah. I didn't really know what to do, so I went to Google and I typed in the word mitzvah, but for some reason I hesitated and also put in the word Brooklyn. Maybe because of my grandparents and even my great-grandparents who were Russian immigrants who settled in Brooklyn over 100 years ago. So what I did is I typed in mitzvah and Brooklyn, and the first result I got was finding a website called The Mitzvah Man. It's a Chesed organization started by Michael Cohen. I called him and I explained, I'm just a financial advisor. I sit behind a computer all day. I have limited time, but I have a willingness to help. So Michael sent me to visit one very special man, Ludwig Katzenstein, who escaped Nazi Germany with his family a couple of weeks before Kristallnacht. I went to the survivor. I expected to stay maybe for 15, 20 minutes, but I stayed there over 2 hours. I heard an amazing story, and anyone who's interested, please check out his own story on YouTube. Search Ludwig Katzenstein, Queen Mary. It's a truly amazing story. After that, I joined Connect 2, which is called Friendly Visiting for Holocaust Survivors. I met over 25 survivors in the past 5 years, and the experience continues to be life-changing. Reading books or watching movies about the Holocaust is definitely important, but to have an emotional connection to history, this is what it's all about. So whether it's face-to-face before COVID or simply by telephone, it's important to reach out to the survivors. Let's face it, there's not many left, and it's a battle for time. Okay, so basically I heard many interesting stories. I met Rebecca Fried, who was one of the survivors. She was on the famous Exodus ship in 1948, which led to the creation of Israel. Told me some amazing stories. I met Frances Irwin, who as a teenager in Auschwitz got together with other teenage girls and they smuggled gunpowder and they actually did damage to one of the ovens and they tried to blow up Auschwitz. Truly a remarkable person. I also met many other survivors, such as Simon, known as the Knish Man. Simon owned a kosher food business. He also delivered kosher food to the Catskill Mountains. And I'll never forget Simon. He was a very, very nice guy. I met also Herman Graulich, who was a barber. In fact, he was a barber in Crown Heights, and he cut the hair of the Lubavitcher Rebbe for decades. And I think the Rebbe blessed him for a long life. I helped Herman celebrate his 101st birthday. Unfortunately, there was no family available, so I was there myself with his aide. Herman was also benefited from Bichor Kolim, which brought him a large print sitter and helped him in many, many ways. So the Mitzvah Van and Connect 2 truly changed my life. It's important for you to help out however you can, whether it's by donation, whether it's by phone calls. God willing, we'll all see these survivors face to face shortly, but please do whatever you can. Don't take the survivors for granted. Now's your chance. A lot of you, particularly your children or your grandchildren, won't have the same opportunity to visit a Holocaust survivor. Now is your chance. Act on it. Do what you can. I want to thank Dina and Jonathan Leader. I also want to thank a few special people: Michael Cohn, Linda, Rabbi Wiener, Ellie Shever, Sarah, and a special shout out to all the doctors, nurses, and caregivers out there. You're all very, very special. May Hashem bless you. Am Yisrael Chai.
Thank you, Michael. I would like to introduce our good friends, Mikhail, and Sophia Turovsky. Mikhail is a world-renowned artist from the Ukraine. Misha spent much of his artistic life creating a body of work called the Holocaust Cycle, which has been exhibited in Yad Vashem, the Ukraine, the Museum of Jewish Heritage, and the Center for Jewish History, both in New York City. On a personal basis, Mikhail is a true Renaissance man. John and I have spent many wonderful hours with him and his wife, Sophia, discussing art, music, poetry, and literature. We will begin with a short video in which Misha will talk about his creation, the cycle of the Holocaust, exhibiting some of his works.
Hello, thank you, Jonathan and Dina. It is our honor to participate in this commemoration of the liberation of Auschwitz. To respond to your question of why I created this body of work about the Holocaust, I want to say first that it was probably because I myself survived. I am a Holocaust survivor. Secondly, at a certain point of my life, at the very beginning of my migration to the United States in 1979, I began to feel that it was this subject that most compelled me. It became the single most important thing that I wanted to express. No one commissioned this work. I felt driven to do it. I had no singular large-scale goal, only my own fragmented vision that eventually carried into a cycle consisting of 45 paintings and many drawings, which I called Holocaust. Of course, the fact that I had broken loose from the totalitarian state and obtained the freedom to address any subject that I wanted also played a major role. In the former Soviet Union, it was impossible to speak of what happened to the Jews during the Second World War. The state silenced any mention of the genocide that occurred. All this led to an enormous sense to inner protest for me. The Holocaust culminated in the destruction of 6 million lives. One can only imagine how many souls floated away as clouds into the unknown. What thought they carried with them, what secrets, what talents, what ordinary tales of life, how much love, how much joyous libido or life force, how much human potential and human happiness. Innumerable lives cut short without legacy. A document cannot convey it. Reason cannot grasp it. Only art, which addresses itself directly to human emotions, is able to convey the enormity of this loss. It was not important for me to show the perpetrators, nor to show blood. I worked monochronically. I could not use color because in the process of creating this work, I was surrounded by darkness. There was no sky, no sun, no green grace, only complete oblivion. My ultimate goal was to inspire compassion for the victims of genocide, to show what the Jewish tragedy is not simple Jewish, but universal, human affliction. The destruction of human beings by human beings continues to this day. I felt it was the duty as a survivor of the World War II, as an artist, and most importantly as a human being, to honor the lives that were lost and to serve in their memory. After I came to the States, I worked on this subject without interruption from 1980 to 1987. In 1987, I felt that I had expressed what I needed to. The emotional strain of working of the cycle was affecting my health both physically and psychologically. But in 2001, unexpectedly, even to myself, I returned to this subject and painted the series Achtung, all strip. Now the entire Holocaust cycle consists of 65 paintings. It has been exhibited in parts in New York, Philadelphia, Jerusalem, Kyiv, and other cities.
Thank you so much for sharing that artwork. It's really powerful and very, very dark. I also want to thank Dina and John for putting together this program today. I think I'll introduce myself. Good evening to everyone. I'm Michal, Divon. It's really a pleasure to participate in today's program, and it's really a pleasure to be able to take part and to help commemorate this day, International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And if there's one hopeful thing about this year and one different thing than previous years, it's seeing the outpouring of support by our new friends in the Gulf, Emiratis, Bahrainis. We were seeing also people in Morocco just reaching out, commemorating, calling to further educate about the Holocaust and say never again. So I hope you're all aware of this and able to appreciate it. It's really remarkable. Now, today in particular, I want to familiarize you with a group of Jews and non-Jews who resisted the Nazis, the so-called partisans, who were popularized some years ago in a wonderful film that I revisited today called Defiance. Now, the partisans were young men, also some women, who fled the Jewish ghettos when the Nazis arrived, and they took flight into the woods, and they performed acts of destruction and sabotage on the invading Germans. Not all partisans were Jews, as I mentioned. There were also partisans from countries from the former Soviet Union who were anti-Semitic in their own right, and they were also hostile towards the Jews. So thus the Jewish partisans themselves were often fighting a two-front war. We are now going to play for you a song about the partisans called At the Edge of the Forest. And this song ultimately found its way to Israel and was then renamed On the Plains of the Negev, which we all love. It was then popularized. It became a symbol of resistance during Israel's 1948 War of Independence. And by the way, the photo of the little boy that you will see in the background as the song plays is no other than Dina's father at the age of 10 as a partisan in the Russian army.
Dort beim Breck von Wäldl steht ein alter Bäum, schäppchen seine Blätter, als man hört sie kaum, schäppchen und erzählen, wie es starb a Held, wenn es fallen Keulen über Wald und Feld. Schäppchen und erzählen, wie es starb a Held, wenn es fallen Keulen über Wald und Feld. Dort leben Bäum von Wäldl, liegt a Partisan, Blätter ihm verstellen, sie sa Kranz voran, liegt hört nit, seht nit, durch sich schluft a Zint, wie der Wind a Werbe, tulet wie a Kind. Liegt hört nit, seht nit, durch sich schluft a Zint, wie der Wind a Werbe, tulet wie a Kind.
I would like now to introduce a wonderful young man named Ido Carmel, a member of the organization we referred to previously, the Israel-American Council. In 2019, Ido participated in an IAC hackathon at which teenagers presented their original solutions to a challenging task: create an innovative teen-oriented app to help keep the stories of the Holocaust alive. In his spare time, Ido is getting both a high school and college degree a year from June. At that time, when he will be 17 and a half, he hopes to enter medical school and become a cardiac thoracic surgeon. I have already signed on as his first patient. Before Ido speaks, we would like to show you a short video about the Israel-American Council's Eitanim program.
People should be informed what happened to the Jewish people.
Our goal is to share the stories to as many future generations as possible.
Connects is a free app that gives people the option to learn, engage, and help.
I think it's wonderful to bring young people from all parts of country together. They meet, they listen, they learn.
Thank you, John. Hi, I'm Ido Carmel. I'm the great-grandson of a Holocaust survivor and an IAC Eitanim graduate. The IAC Eitanim program is a really meaningful program to me that is truly impactful as a way to help my community. At the ISC Hackathon, groups from around the world worked on ways to find and preserve the Holocaust survivor stories. Connect was the ideal way to preserve them. It was a way to connect the next generations to come by giving them away in an interactive map and an AI texting stream to connect them with these Holocaust survivors. In Tanim, we worked on many different projects to help Israeli Americans connect and experience and love Israel. At the hackathon, we focused on preserving the story of Holocaust survivors, and to figure it out, I decided to call my great-grandmother. She's a Holocaust survivor herself, and she told me something that has stuck with me. She said that she wants her story to be remembered and accessed by anyone that wants to listen, not just because it's important to remember and never forget any of the stories, but because it can be a lesson to the people of the world to never do this again. This morning, I called her, and she told me that she wants anyone who listens to this and to her story that is struggling to use her story as a beacon of hope, that even in the darkest moments, they can get through them. The whole hackathon experience was amazing, from the talk with my great-grandmother to talking with Holocaust survivors. It was really life-changing, on a level that taught me the value of life and inspiring me to share my great-grandmother's stories, and the lesson that there are so many stories about the Holocaust, none the same as the other, which is why none should go unheard and all should be remembered. Thank you.
This brings us to the end of our program. We have looked at various symbols of the Holocaust in art, music, and literature. But the most important symbol we did not discuss. It is you, all of you who are watching, who have joined us in this program. You, first of all, are a symbol to the non-Jewish world, that we stand strong and remember our past. But more importantly, by joining us today, you are a symbol to Klal Yisrael, all Jews, that we are a beautiful people who have and will continue to survive all of the tragedies that come our way. Today, at a time when so many Jews are being lost to Judaism, you are the symbol, you are the strength, the chizuk, that is going to keep us alive. This idea is expressed no more beautifully than in Israel's national anthem, Hatikva, the hope. Our wonderful friend, Danna Gelfand, who has been singing at our simchas since she was 6 years old, will now end our program by singing this song, Hatikva. If you are able to and you would like to, please rise and sing along with her. Danna.
Olod balevav penima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulfate mizrach kadima Ein Zion Sophia und love that tikatenu hatikva bachnut alpayim liotam hoshi be'atzenu eretz Zion Yerushalayim liotam hofshi be'atzenu eretz Zion Yerushalayim